anxiety, fear, uncertainty. These are all emotions felt during the midst of a seemingly uncontrollable disease. In March 2020, the World Health Organization deemed COVID-19 a global pandemic, and it was clear that there was no certainty as to when the world would return to normal. As cases and death tolls began to rise, the need for a vaccine increased. By December, multiple vaccines were in the works created by the best researchers and scientists in the business. 2 were approved by the FDA for use within the United States. However, polls of American citizens showed that the people were reluctant to accept that a vaccine could have been made so fast, and claimed that they would not partake in the vaccine. How was it that in the midst of uncertainty, people were unwilling to accept a clear sign of hope and a chance to return to normalcy? For some time, it felt like we were all alone in a place where no one had experienced these circumstances before. Some would call them unprecedented times. But were they really? A look back into our not-so-distant past shows that some of these same fears were present in other epidemics. In this video, we will take a closer look at how people responded to vaccination efforts during both COVID-19 and polio, and how both the media and political figures had an impact on the public's acceptance or deterrence of the vaccinations.
With COVID-19, we have seen significant controversy over the vaccine. There have been many myths around the side effects of the vaccine, as well as concerns about the expedited nature of the vaccine trials. Politics has played a major role in the public reaction to COVID-19 and the corresponding vaccine. One poll showed that 47% of conservatives who voted for Donald Trump would reject the vaccine, whereas only 10% of people who voted for Biden said they would reject the vaccine. The main reason people claim for rejecting the vaccine is that the virus is not that serious and not worth the rumored side effects of the vaccine. Trump has conveyed in his tweets that COVID-19 is not serious and encouraged his supporters not to fear the virus. For Trump supporters, if the virus isn't serious, why would they risk a brand new vaccine?
One thing with me, the nice part, I went through it. Now they say I'm immune. I feel so powerful. I'll walk into that audience. I'll walk in there. I'll kiss everyone in that audience. I'll kiss the guys and the beautiful women and everybody. I'll just give you a big fat kiss.
To drive his point home, this is what Donald Trump said to his supporters after he himself recovered from COVID, conveying that it's no serious matter. Notice he told his supporters that once you have COVID, you are immune. So logically, if you're immune to the virus once you've had it, you don't need the vaccine after contracting COVID. However, this is simply not true. To combat these fears, many news sites, universities, and politicians have been creating and circulating vaccine infographics. These infographics have been circulating via social media such as Twitter and Instagram. News outlets, politicians, and everyday citizens alike have banded together to use the media to promote the vaccine. There have even been hundreds of YouTube clips created to educate the public on the truth behind the vaccine. Here's a clip from UCLA's YouTube channel. Many people have faced their fears and decided that the vaccine is worth the risk. This is a video of the line at the PNC Arena Vaccine Clinic in Raleigh. However, despite these combined efforts to educate the public, many still don't buy it. These are some tweets under the hashtag #VaccinesKill on Twitter. Overall, this vaccine has gained extremely polarized opinions.
Now, let's take a look at how the United States experienced polio outbreaks and how vaccination efforts were received by the public.
Polio is a disease that many people are familiar with today. but likely will not experience in their lifetime because of vaccines developed in the 1950s. In the summer of 1916, the polio epidemic began. Children who gathered together spread the disease among each other rapidly, and with no vaccine or medical method to prevent the spread, more children became sick and were left paralyzed or died. People who were older also became sick from polio, though the main concern lay with children who were passing it around. The best known method to prevent the spread of polio was to reduce physical contact. At this point, it was known that polio could be spread through water droplets from an infected person's mouth or from their bodily fluids, leaving the public to avoid spaces where this might occur. Because of this, public places such as pools, parks, or other areas like movie theaters were closed. There were no rules or regulations specified from the government, though many people chose to avoid contact as much as possible. Polio became especially popular in politics when President Roosevelt became sick with it in 1921. Seeing that this disease truly did have the ability to infect and impact adults caused more concern over the disease. In the 1930s, a medical machine known as the iron lung was used to assist patients with paralytic polio in breathing. It used pressure differences to push air into and out of the lungs of patients. In 1934, President Roosevelt hosted several events on his birthday, known as birthday balls, to encourage donations supporting the Warm Springs Foundation, an organization named for the district in the state of Georgia where FDR swam and felt his polio symptoms decrease. This drew many people to the area and brought in a lot of revenue to the area. 4 years later, President Roosevelt founded the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, later known as the March of Dimes, to raise awareness and funds for research towards a vaccine. This video contains an audio segment promoting the March of Dimes.
Several years ago, we expanded the work of Warm Springs by helping communities throughout the country to raise money for the care of their own infantile paralysis cases, and through their generosity, to give financial help to the cause of research into the origin of the disease.
In 1952, more polio cases brought increased awareness to the disease and exaggerated the need for a vaccine. In 1955, when vaccines distributed by Cutter Laboratories were found to have flaws that resulted in more cases of polio, the public became concerned to receive the vaccine. By the time the production and distribution of the vaccine had stopped, there were 40,000 cases of polio recorded, with 200 children left paralyzed and 10 dead. This disaster was called the Cutter Incident. At the time, there was no method to regulate vaccines and ensure they were completely safe for distribution, so the federal government received the blame for the incident. The Cutter Incident is accredited with the creation of effective government regulation of vaccines. After the Cutter vaccine was suspended, 2 other doctors got to work finding vaccines while the government developed methods to regulate vaccines. Doctors Salk and Sabin created 2 forms of a polio vaccine. Dr. Salk's was via an immunization, while Dr. Sabin's was administered orally. Both were effective and steadily, the public became more assured of the vaccine. In 1944, it was officially announced by the Pan-American Health Organization that polio had been eliminated in the Americas. Today, Dr. Salk's vaccine is given to infants and children 2 months after they're born, 4 months after they're born, between 6 and 18 months after they're born, and lastly, between the ages of 4 and 6. Children and adults traveling to areas where polio is still a problem, areas like Afghanistan, Pakistan, the Philippines, Malaysia, or Yemen, can receive booster shots that then provide the adults with lifetime immunity to the disease. In these areas where polio is still a problem, people can receive the oral vaccine created by Dr. Sabin. However, only in the United States, Dr. Salk's immunization is approved. President Roosevelt's March of Dimes Foundation is still active today and works to prevent premature births and birth defects, now that polio has been eliminated from the Americas.
It is clear that both political figures and the media played a significant role in acceptance levels of vaccines for both COVID-19 and polio. After the Cutter incident, many people feared that the vaccine would harm them more than it would help them. Similarly, a common fear when it comes to the COVID-19 vaccination is that it is under-researched and that we don't really know what its effects would be on people. While political factors surrounding the acceptance of the polio vaccine were not as red and blue as they are today, the American people blamed the federal government for the Cutter incident, and distrust grew from it. While there is no one explanation for the distrust in the federal government when it comes to the COVID-19 vaccination, it could be assumed that some of this fear would be associated with the Cutter incident itself, along with polarization due to it being election year and the influence of the media. In both cases, the media was used to spread information about vaccine triumphs and failures. However, it seems that today's media contains much more false, unproven, or out-of-context information than was seen during the polio vaccination efforts. One significant similarity between vaccine acceptance within the polio and COVID-19 vaccination efforts is the use of publicizing public figures receiving the vaccine. Elvis Presley famously received the polio vaccination in front of millions of Americans while starring on The Ed Sullivan Show. Before the show's air, only 0.6% of Americans' teens had received the vaccination. After the show's air, in 6 months' time, that number had skyrocketed to over 80%. Public figures like Dolly Parton, Joe Biden, and Dr. Andrew Fauci received their COVID-19 vaccines live on television as a way to promote the vaccine to the world. Looking at both diseases and the public's reactions to vaccines, it is easier to feel that we are not alone. The United States and the world have faced multiple unprecedented times, each with their own bout of uncertainty and distrust. Therefore, we must strive to learn from our past mistakes and embrace the knowledge we have today in order to have hope for a better tomorrow.